Alright, I want to talk about section 12.9, and it's called Additive and Multiplicative Rules for Probability. I'm not sure why they call it that. We're basically going to be doing kind of what we did before in this section with a little bit more practice. We're going to be building those trees, and then we're going to be looking at the outcomes in the tree to determine probabilities. In this case, for my example, I'm going to be using 2 coin flips, and I'm going to be asking what's the probability that I get tails on both of my coin flips to start with. So let's look at coin flips. And I want to know the probability of 2 tails in a row. Now, some of you might know this one already, but we're going to build our outcome tree just like normal. So I'm going to build my first toss. And when I do that, I can get a heads or a tails. And my second toss, I can get a heads or a tails. And here a heads or a tails. And I can even list my outcomes at this point in a third column if I'd like. I can see that I have heads, 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 tails, tails, heads, and tails, tails. So in this case, finding out the probability of 2 tails in a row, probability of 2 tails, is pretty easy to tell. I can write this as, let me find another color, the favorable over total. And I can see that up here I have only one time that this appears, this 2 tails. One time, and there are 4 total outcomes. So my probability here is 1/4, or I could even write that as 25%. Now, what if I wanted to ask some additional questions about this, and I wanted to say, what is the probability that both of the coins match? Well, in this case, I'm going to return back to my tree diagram that I've built, and I'm going to say, well, they match here, and they match here. That gives me 2 favorable over total, 2 times out of 4 total, and that would give me about 50%. And lastly, I could even say, what is the probability that I get a tails first? In this case, I would do the same thing. I would go and look back at my options. This would account for that, as well as this. Again, 2 out of 4. Now, for what you're going to be doing in the homework, you're going to be using a bit of a more complicated tree diagram to do this exact same thing. But you should be able to figure it out from there. If you'd like, we'll do another one quick that with a little bit more complicated of a tree, and you can watch me do that if you'd like. Otherwise, go ahead and go on. Now, the one that they give that's a bit more of a complicated example is... Let me find the one that I was reading and that I liked. Let's see. Well, we've got our heads and our tails. We can build the first one that we've got real quick. Let's do our spinner. In this case, it is green, red, and I don't have blue, but I do have purple. And the question is, what are the outcomes in this case? So what I would do is just build a large tree. And looking through, looks like it's just 2 times in a row maximum. And then I would probably list all the outcomes so that I could sort them easier. And this way I'd be able to ask how many times were they similar, how many times were they different, how many things starts with a green, or whatever case it will ask, or I'll be able to sort through my outcomes and see this much more clearly. Go ahead and good luck. This is the tree that you'll build for the first 1 through 6, and you'll be able to answer the questions using this. Go ahead and go on.